one of this town's most ambitious, charming, promising new executives and his wife were savagely murdered in their home.
The Menendez mansion in Beverly Hills was the embodiment of the American dream. Nestled among palm-lined streets, the sprawling estate exuded opulence, its pristine white walls and vaulted ceilings a testament to wealth and success. To the outside world, the Menendez family had it all: affluence, status, and an air of perfection. But behind those walls lay secrets. Secrets so dark they would culminate in one of the most brutal and shocking crimes in American history.
Eric and Lyle Menendez shot and killed their parents inside the family's Beverly Hills mansion.
On the night of August 20th, 1989, the carefully crafted illusion shattered in a hail of gunfire. In the serene living room, José and Kitty Menendez sat watching The Spy Who Loved Me on their television. The tranquil hum of the screen was obliterated by the deafening roar of a shotgun. The first blast struck José in the torso, hurling him forward on the couch. Blood sprayed across the room, splattering the elegant furnishings and immaculate walls. Before he could react, a second shot shattered the back of his skull, leaving him slumped and lifeless, his head grotesquely disfigured. Kitty screamed. Her voice, shrill and panicked, echoed through the house as she scrambled to escape. She stumbled over furniture, clawing at walls in desperation, but her killers pursued her with chilling determination. Shot after shot rang out, missing at first, shredding the antique coffee table, ripping into a painting and embedding in the walls. Kitty's attempts to hide were futile. Her pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears as her attackers closed in. More shots tore into her flesh, and her body collapsed in a lifeless heap. The final blast obliterated her face, leaving her unrecognizable. The room, once a sanctuary of refinement, had become a scene of unspeakable carnage. Blood pooled across the Persian rug, soaking into its once vibrant threads. Splinters of bone clung to the walls, while shattered furniture lay strewn about, its elegance reduced to rubble. The paused frame of the James Bond film flickered on the television, a haunting reminder of how swiftly ordinary life had turned into a nightmare. Minutes later, Lyle Menendez, the elder of the family's two sons, dialed 911. His voice trembled as he sobbed into the receiver. "Someone killed my parents."
What's the problem? Someone killed my parents. Pardon me?
When police arrived, they found Lyle and Eric, visibly distraught, standing outside the mansion. Their cries echoed into the quiet Beverly Hills night. To investigators, the crime scene suggested a targeted attack. The sheer brutality of the murders seemed too extreme for a random burglary. Initial theories ranged from a mob hit, given José's high-profile career in the entertainment industry, to a robbery gone wrong. But as the investigation progressed, suspicion began to creep closer to home. In the days following the murders, the brothers' grief appeared genuine. They attended their parents' funeral with heads bowed and shoulders shaking with sobs. But behind closed doors, their behavior painted a starkly different picture. Within weeks, they embarked on an extravagant spending spree, indulging in Rolex watches, designer clothes, luxury cars, and even a restaurant. To outsiders, it seemed less like mourning and more like celebration. The contradiction between their apparent sorrow and their newfound excess raised eyebrows. Investigators began to scrutinize the brothers more closely. The crime, initially assumed to be the work of an outsider, began to look increasingly suspicious. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of valuables stolen. The violence suggested deep personal animosity, and the brothers' sudden spending spree only deepened suspicions. Their alibi started to crumble, and as the police dug deeper, the cracks in their story widened. The breaking point came when Eric, consumed by guilt, confessed to his psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. During a session, Eric detailed the murders in chilling clarity: the planning, the execution, and the aftermath. He admitted that he and Lyle had purchased shotguns days before the killings, traveling out of state to bypass California's waiting period. Dr. Oziel, fearing for his safety, recorded subsequent sessions where the brothers discussed their crimes. These tapes would later become pivotal evidence, though their use in court sparked intense legal battles. The trial that followed became a media spectacle, rivaling even the O.J. Simpson case in its public intrigue. Lyle and Eric, now in their early 20s, were charged with first-degree murder. The defense stunned the public by alleging that the killings were not motivated by greed.
At the first trial, defense attorneys painted a vivid picture of molestation, abuse, and psychological trench warfare.
But by years of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse at the hands of their father, José Menendez. According to their testimony,
my dad had been molesting me. He raped me.
José was a sadistic tyrant who demanded absolute control over every aspect of their lives. The abuse, they claimed, began in early childhood and continued into their teenage years, creating a household ruled by fear and submission. Lyle testified about the psychological torment they endured, while Eric described incidents of sexual abuse that left the courtroom in stunned silence. They painted their father as a man who wielded his power like a weapon, using his wealth and influence to silence dissent. Kitty, they argued, was complicit, turning a blind eye to her husband's actions and enabling his reign of terror. The brothers described a home devoid of love, where perfection was demanded and failure was met with brutal punishment. Their attorneys argued that the murders were an act of self-preservation, a desperate attempt to escape a lifetime of torment. On the night of the killings, they claimed, an argument escalated into threats. José allegedly told the brothers they would be disowned and that their secrets would die with them. Fearing for their lives, Lyle and Eric acted in what they described as a moment of sheer terror. The prosecution, however, presented a far different narrative. They argued that the murders were premeditated and driven by greed.
Killings of José and Kitty Menendez is murder in the first degree.
The brothers, they said, had grown resentful of their parents' control and saw the killings as a way to access their inheritance. Prosecutors pointed to the brothers' lavish spending spree as evidence of their true motives. They highlighted the calculated nature of the crime, the purchase of the shotguns, the execution-style killings, and the elaborate cover-up. The overkill, they argued, was not a product of fear but of rage. The courtroom drama captivated the nation, with graphic testimony, emotional breakdowns, and sensational revelations dividing public opinion. Some saw the brothers as victims, pushed to the brink by years of abuse. Others viewed them as manipulative killers who exploited the specter of victimhood to justify their actions. The relentless media coverage turned the Menendez brothers into household names, igniting debates about privilege, justice, and the complexities of trauma. After 2 trials, both ending in convictions, Lyle and Eric Menendez were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury rejected their claims of self-defense, concluding that the murders were calculated acts fueled by greed. The brothers were sent to separate prisons, their once close bond fractured by the enormity of their crimes. Decades later, the case remains a subject of fascination and controversy. In 2024, new allegations surfaced from Roy Rosselló, a former Menudo band member who claimed José Menendez had sexually abused him as a teenager. This revelation added weight to the brothers' claims of abuse and prompted calls for a reassessment of their convictions. A resentencing hearing, now set for January 2025, could lead to their charges being reduced to voluntary manslaughter. Lyle and Eric could walk free, no longer the infamous brothers locked away for life, but men attempting to rebuild their lives after decades behind bars. But the question lingers. Were the Menendez brothers victims of unimaginable trauma who acted in a moment of desperate self-preservation? Or were they cold-blooded killers who manipulated their narrative to escape accountability? And more importantly, if you were in their shoes, what would you have done?